Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Rainmaker's Roundup. I am your host, Mark Iorio, and today with me I have the founder and CEO, president of Humareso, John Baldino.
How are you, Mark?
John, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. Great to have you. Great to have you.
Thank you.
I'm going to start off with the usual question, John.
Okay.
Where did Humareso come from?
Oh, the name.
The name,
so,
yeah.
Typically I tell people that, Humareso is Italian for human resources.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
People believe you.
All the time, but it's not true. The story is less glamorous, right? So
Yeah.
I sat in front of a computer for 3 days, really, with GoDaddy.
No kidding.
Because I'm looking for domain names,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
That haven't been taken yet, that have something to do with human resources. And so really it's just the first 4 letters of human and resources put together.
Humareso. There you
Humareso.
go. Beautiful.
That's it.
You're in a competitive business. I mean, it's Rainmakers. I told you before is about being different,
Right.
but in a competitive business. And Humareso is in a pretty competitive business, right? Human resource consulting,
Yeah.
Talent management, human capital
Yeah.
consulting.
Yeah.
How are you? Why are you so different? How are you so different?
Yeah, you're right. First of all, with kind of the lay of the land, people right now are much more attentive to what's happening with their employees.
Mm-hmm.
They need them. There's a lot less being done as far as knowledge management, and so when people leave, it can really disrupt significantly some organizations, and so they need to start paying attention to their staff.
Sure,
So human
sure.
resources, their happiness, human capital strategies, I think is a great term that you just used there. Those kinds of things now are things that people are talking about. So for us, really, it's a matter of just balancing the basics, sort of the tactical components of HR that you can't avoid, that still do matter.
Like what, John?
Well, when I started, I had the privilege of starting in HR before it was HR, right? And I remember being supportive to personnel, right?
That's what it was called.
At Wanamaker's, and I used to work at the Wynwood store, and so my role was crazy.
Yeah.
I was allowed to be an associate trainer, right, under personnel.
Sure.
But also was part of credit, was also part of customer service. All of that sort of was melded because that's what you did at the retail level there, and this is in the 80s.
Right.
And personnel was a different function then, but there are certain components of that still are true today. People would walk into that office and just want to chat about what was going on and what the company needed to know,
right?
What their managers didn't understand.
Yeah.
You still had to take care of payroll. Back then it was just major medical, but now you've got much more of a benefits administration need that's there. Those things you have to take care of because people have families, they have needs, they want to know that their paychecks are right. You're not going to get away from those things.
Yeah.
But you also do need to balance it with things that are more transformative, right? That give people an opportunity to be more than they think they are today and more than the company thinks it can be, right?
Right.
Today.
Exactly.
And that roadmap has to be something that has a lot more clarity. So balancing those two things with some, I think one of the things that our staff does well is listen well and then respond well.
Yeah.
You have to be real in some of this, right? It's not always hearts and flowers.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned the tactical side. You mentioned the more personal side of life, right? And today, we talked a little bit about this earlier. There's 600,000 jobs or something that are open out there, right? And companies are having a very difficult time filling those roles.
Yeah.
Right. So human capital, people, employees are very important.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times companies, you tell me, are missing the boat, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's right. It can't be too generalized, but yes, there's a lot of organizations that aren't thoughtful enough to that. And you're right.
Yeah.
This year, we've seen it a few times where on the monthly jobs reports that are released, they've added some other criteria over the last, I think, 20 years. But this past year, we've seen it a few times where there are less people seeking a job than there are jobs available.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Other statistics talk about the fact that there are less skilled people available to fill the jobs that are out there.
Yep.
And so that comes down to what are we doing in our education system, right? The college experience, is that really everything that it was intended to be? We have less people attending, actually, colleges. They're seeking alternative lines of education. You've got MOOC and all these other things that are happening online.
Right.
And people are walking away with certifications, less debt. and they're opening their own companies in
Yeah.
some ways, right?
True.
And so they're becoming entrepreneurs right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, how is an organization supposed to compete with that, right? What are we supposed to do with when we have such a talent shortage? What do we do to combat that and find the people that we need? I think that organizations have to learn to be a lot more nimble.
A lot more nimble and more focused on training the people they have so that they feel like they're more part of the organization.
Yeah,
right?
and I think that's a great word, training. And I would say, and you know, as I alluded to earlier, that was my first foray into what now is HR, was
Yeah,
training, right? I did register training, right? The returns at Wanamaker's and
Yeah, right.
stock and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you know, if you don't also have a development plan for each individual connected to that training, then the training just becomes a checklist. We did this,
Yeah,
we did this,
exactly.
right? And it's done.
Right.
Well, how has that really helped in someone's individualized development? Where are we taking them?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. You seem so passionate about what you do. Why are
Thank
you passionate about, you know, your business, Humareso, and what you can do to help organizations? I mean, it comes through in the way you're
Thanks.
you're presenting yourself.
I appreciate that. Honestly, part of it is personal.
Yeah.
Because in my life, there have been a few people who have taken a chance on me.
That's
right?
great.
Who developed me,
Yeah.
right? Who said, there's something there,
Yeah.
right? And I think that and while I love those folks, I'm not saying that there's anything to them that was greater than what anybody else has, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of intention. Who can I run with?
Right.
Right. So now that you're sitting in a position where, I mean, you know, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in this leadership development, HR, training and development world for 28 years.
Wow.
I'm excited to turn around and see, you know,
Yeah.
who's following, who can I invest in, how can we invest in companies that want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's really what we spend a lot of our time doing.
There's got to be some piece of you too that looks at going into a client and seeing a client transform from, you know, a not so organized, not so focused organization to one that might have, you know, all the policies and procedures in place, maybe a training and development program put together, you know, the right benefits program that they put together in place, right compensation program in place. But more importantly, that's all the tactical stuff that you talked about, emotionally getting people connected to the organization. You've got to have some feeling of gratification there, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's actually the right word. I think that organizations, one of the areas to get a lot smarter in is recognition and gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I think
Yeah.
that people, by nature, any of us, when we're told we're doing a great job,
We feel good.
it means something.
Yeah, we feel good.
Right? Even if you're like, no, I'm thanks. You know, we still absorb that
Yeah.
as a positive and an affirmative. And that does not mean simply the year-end bonus.
Yeah.
That is not enough of a love language for some folks.
Or having a beer hall in your cafeteria.
Well, with a ping pong table.
With a ping pong
Right,
table,
don't forget
right,
that.
or
Right.
foosball or something
Right,
like that.
and all of a sudden we have engaged employees because we put this stuff in our break room.
Yeah.
It's silly, right?
It
That's
is
not
silly.
enough.
It is.
It is in some ways. It is also something that we have to pay attention to when it comes even to our consideration around inclusion in our workplaces,
Yeah.
right? Just because you plug a bunch of people in places and say we're diverse, it does not mean that you're inclusive and equitable at all in the way in which these resources are now being used.
Right.
We have to be smart about that because if not, you are going to have turnover.
Yeah.
Because people will realize I don't fit.
Yeah, I don't fit. I don't want, I'm not,
Right.
that's not my style. I don't want beer in my break room or ping pong. I don't play ping pong.
Right.
or
Let's
whatever.
balance, the severity around the sexual harassment issues that are going on in our world with all-day beer.
Yeah, right.
Right,
Oh,
like,
yeah. That's a great idea.
What's happening here?
Yeah,
Right. That
yeah.
can't be the only route
Yeah.
to think through.
John, there's got to be some real, so we have a 3.9% unemployment rate. You've got 600,000 or so people looking for, or job openings out there. What
Right.
other headwinds do you see in HR that, as Humareso's president, you're seeing?
I think that one I just alluded to, which is this consideration around inclusion. I think that we have remained stagnant for decades around our consideration in diversity. That's just become a form to fill out, right? And the government hasn't helped us. Right? I'm sure this will be bugged at some point, but the government doesn't help us. They don't help us.
Yeah.
They give us, 4 categories to say, well, therefore we must be a diverse organization. Well, I hate to tell you, there's a lot more diversity in the world than 4 categories.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what are we doing to help bring that kind of talent in? What are the ways we're looking at returning vets, at disabled workers, at those that are recently released from prison? How do we get them back into, the win out in Vegas? I don't know if you've read this story. Over the past year has brought in 400 folks that were recently incarcerated, and they matriculated them back into work life, right? Mm-hmm. And those kinds of of course you have to manage that program well, and there's a lot to it. Yeah. But there's an entire segment of the population that are usually overlooked, right? Or they're less desirable, or we have to accommodate in a certain way.
They want a second chance, and we're giving them a second chance, right?
And they're competent folks.
Yeah.
Even folks with certain levels of disabilities. By the way, not every disability is a visible disability.
Yeah.
But we can have room to include and give people an equitable voice in contribution there.
Yeah.
Organizations have to get much smarter.
Absolutely, I agree with you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about what we think, or John thinks, the role of HR as it's evolved over the years will look like in the near term. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
Shelter dogs aren't broken. They've simply experienced more life. If they were human, we would call them wise. They would be the ones with tales to tell and stories to write. The ones dealt a bad hand who responded with courage. Do not pity a shelter dog. Adopt one.
Welcome back to Rainmaker's Roundup. I am your host, Mark Iorio, and with me is John Baldino. John is the president, founder, and CEO of Humareso, which is Italian for human resources, from what I understand.
That's what I hear too, yes.
And that's the way it should be. Yes. How do those Italians handle human resources?
That's a whole other story. We need another segment for that.
Especially around the holidays, right?
Oh, gosh.
No fights at the Christmas table.
Brutal.
Right?
Brutal.
Let's not do that.
Brutal.
You were funny story. You were talking to me about Wannamakers, right? When you first started in personnel, and you see how personnel has evolved over the years, and it's become human resources, human capital management, talent management,
right? People management, right.
Training and development. This is maybe not an easy question, but how do you see HR evolving over the next few near term, John?
So, there are some organizations that have removed human resources completely or never adopted it as a department.
Really?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So Urban in Philadelphia, right? So the parent company for Urban Outfitters, Anthropologia, they don't have HR.
Okay.
They have attorneys, and they have talent acquisition, recruitment.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
That's what they have. They're not alone. There are other organizations that have done the same, because the effectiveness of human resources, in their estimation, has not been at a level that makes sense to have the department. It's been a loss leader.
Wow,
right?
Interesting.
And so they figure for the compliance, the tactical stuff, you've got the attorneys who can do the handbooks and the policies and the responsiveness around discipline.
Yeah.
And then you've got your acquisition folks that can help you with openings, requisitions, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And that's all that's needed.
That's all there is.
Right?
Wow.
So what does that say about human resources, to your point?
Yeah.
First of all, I think we need to be constantly, as practitioners, constantly educated, reading constantly, attending seminars, sessions. I'm not saying that all of them are going to be awesome. I'm not saying that all of them, are going to light the world on fire, but they keep you thoughtful about what the issues are that are happening in our modern workforce.
Yeah,
and ready to deal with the folks that are coming in from that.
Right.
Listen, and you and I have talked about this, I'm not a big generational kind of person. I don't get lost in this millennials are like
talk about
this
that
and
for a
Gen Z.
minute.
It's,
People are people, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I share the story all the time when I first started in the workforce. I had people who were older than me say, I don't work hard enough, this, that, and the other. Well, it's the same stuff we characterize people at. And quite honestly, again, a topic for a different day, it's almost discriminatory. Stop relegating people to fitting your sketch of what they should be like.
Yeah.
That's discrimination.
Yeah.
So stop.
That mindset.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's a bias. So instead, look at what's happening in the economy of the world today, right? That's what HR needs to be doing, looking at the business component of things. We've got a lot of people who think entrepreneurially, maybe more so than ever. They're inspired by shows like Shark Tank, right? The Profit, all these other shows that, you can make your own life, your own destiny, your own path. You can do it. You don't have to put 20 years in an organization. Right now, the average stay is still about 3.5 years for someone at an organization. If they are fully engaged, you're close to 7 years.
Wow.
So almost double. But you're not keeping someone.
What's full engagement, though? I mean,
right. Those statistics are probably up for debate, but based on surveys and that sort of stuff, studies, assessments. But best case scenario, the average is almost 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So be prepared that your staff are not going to stay with you forever.
Forever, right.
How do you get the most out of them for as long as you have them, invest in them, knowing that sometimes we also can keep a door open and have them come back. They go in another organization and learn something else for a few years, bring them back.
Yeah, most people just say, the heck with you.
Right.
You just left.
Not
you're
eligible
done.
for rehire.
Right.
Not eligible. Why?
Why? Bring them back at some point.
Right.
Let them go learn something else. Have them come back.
So that's what I mean when HR has to be more flexible.
Yeah. You know what's interesting too, John, is that I've interviewed people for the last couple of years on Rainmakers, and we talk often about people in HR, CHROs, vice presidents of HR.
Yep.
Not at the decision-making table. I'd say, well, is HR a target audience for you? And they would say, no, because they're not decision makers. They don't have the pen. But in some cases, they're influencers. What do you say to that?
I mean, we have not talked about this, but my whole view of this seat at the table thing is, I think, pretty unique for me, which is just sit down. I don't know why we spend so much time talking about it.
Yeah.
If I'm in human resources and let's say in any organization, if I'm the highest ranking HR person in the organization, I should sit at that table.
Absolutely.
Just sit down.
Yeah.
Stop asking.
Yeah.
And if someone asks you, why are you here?
I'm a CHRO. I'm vice president of HR.
I'm the HR director, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm in charge of the largest liability that the company has. Have you looked at the P&L?
Yeah, there you go.
So I should be here.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Or one of the largest assets in the organization.
Correct.
Our people.
Correct.
Right?
Right. And the knowledge that we put in their heads, we're responsible for all that. Where is that knowledge going?
Yeah.
How is it getting in there, and then how is it getting out to others as
Absolutely,
well?
sure.
Right? People used to talk about cross-training. If you remember, like 15 years ago, that was like a big thing.
Big thing.
Cross-train. Fine, I'm not knocking cross-training, but it isn't just to do it so that you've got someone to cover when you're on vacation.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what it became.
Yeah, exactly.
It really should be much more about job enlargement, job enrichment. Those are the things that are going to keep people sparked.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Excited to be there.
Yeah. You've been in business for quite a while, right? Talk about a favorite case study of yours, some organization that you really helped.
Oh gosh.
That you feel good about.
Well, there are a lot actually, right? Thankfully that I can say have been really great experiences. I think sometimes it's the simple stories. So for example, we had an organization that was looking to develop a new vertical for service that they were going to offer to client. And, it was going to have a push as another part of the brand. Awesome.
Yeah.
But they did not want to spend, they didn't really have the money, but they also didn't want to spend that much money on hiring a bunch of new people to start this new vertical until it started making some of its own money.
Yeah.
So we did some competency work with staff, found some folks that were in the team already who had the skill sets that were necessary, and then also looked at the capacity that the department that they were from.
Yeah.
You pay people for 100% capacity when they come to work. I don't know if you
course.
know this, but
Yeah,
that's
right.
what, like,
Yeah.
and most of these folks were operating in the low 80s.
Wow.
Not because they were
They wanted
lazy,
to.
there just was, that was what the work.
There you go.
So removing 2 people from that department moved everybody else up to closer to 95% capacity.
Yeah.
Moved these folks into this new vertical, didn't increase
There you
payroll.
go. That's great.
And there you go.
Yeah, didn't have to go out and hire new people. That's a great story. Typically, how do you find your new clients? Do you go through networking groups, or I think we're still members of the same organization, Beacon, right? Are you still part of that?
I actually am not, but know all of the folks at
players,
Beacon for a long time.
Yeah.
But yes, certainly me personally, there's a lot of networking that I get to do. I speak quite a bit, which is
you
also
do.
really helpful.
Yeah.
I will tell you one of the fun things for our organization, and by the way, we've got business development folks, and they do some, it does some great work as far as networking and relationship development. But a lot of it really is referral based, really, because they see the work that we do. But interestingly, another strong area for us is content. Our blog is read by tons of folks.
Yeah, a lot of people.
A lot of people, which is wonderful.
Yeah, you've got some great articles in there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that has made a huge difference because it gives people sort of a window into,
Yeah.
I wonder how else they can help.
Yeah, great.
Right.
You've had to have some, you talked a little bit about this, but you've had to have some inspiration in your life, right?
Yeah.
Who are those people?
Well, I mean, my grandparents have been, I lived with my grandparents, my mom's parents, for about 7 years, and they were pretty impactful for me.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. My grandfather was a retared Philly cop, and
wow.
My grandmother was a waitress in Philly for decades.
Yeah.
And just good, basic,
Wholesome people.
Right, consideration around work ethic. I don't want to say they were wholesome. My grandfather, being a cop in Philly, I can't say wholesome. But I will say that they gave me a great foundation for loving others, for working hard.
Yeah.
Right, and no excuses.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that. And now, I've got 3 kids of my own, and they're fantastic.
That's great.
I mean, I know I'm biased.
Yeah,
but
of course
they're the
you
best
are.
kids.
Yeah, that's
Right.
great.
Yeah.
That's great. Wonderful.
Yeah.
John, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's been a
appreciate
great
it very
30
much.
minutes.
Thank you.
Can you tell the audience how to get in touch with Humareso
Sure.
and John Baldino, please?
Yeah, so we can, on the screen there, you see Humareso. If you go to humareso.com, that's probably the easiest way for you to get a hold of us. But please also seek us out on social media. Again, everything under Humareso, and we'd be happy to discuss whatever it is you might be going through at your organization.
Have a great holiday.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, John.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. It was my pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week, really next week, right after Christmas, on Rainmaker's Roundup. Have a wonderful holiday season and be safe, everyone.